U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has been urging the main opposition to attend the peace talks in Switzerland. A vote is planned Friday to decide on participation. And joining me now to talk more about the upcoming conference and the Syria crisis is Mark Levine, Senior Advisor with the Truman Project. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Elaine.
What happens if Syria's centrist opposition decides not to go? How will that play out?
I want to make a distinguishing thing between the group that you mentioned, which is the group that basically is not calling for the overthrow of Bashar Assad. They're sort of the loyal opposition, but they're very small and really not that important. With the Free Syrian Army, with General Idris's group, with the moderate Western-supported rebels that frankly began as the peaceful opposition, their decision is going to be made tomorrow, and theirs is most important. Look, they want democracy, and they're being squeezed. They're being squeezed between Iran, which is supported by Russia, which supports Assad, which supports Shia in the region, and Al-Qaeda, which are terrorists, which are Sunni terrorists. So you have Sunni terrorists and Shia terrorists. And the peaceful people of Syria, most of whom don't, the vast majority, do not support Iran, do not support Al-Qaeda. They're being squeezed. 100,000 people massacred, millions that are refugees, and they're basically kicking out of their own country while Iran and Al-Qaeda fight a proxy war. It's a very scary place.
I want to read you something that John Kerry said today. He said the sole purpose of the talks is to implement the 2012 Geneva Communique by establishing a transitional governing body with mutual consent from the opposition and the Syrian government. And he says that's the only way to end this. A little too optimistic here.
Way too optimistic. Obviously, it would be great if it occurs. The only solution in Syria has got to be a democracy where the people vote. And if they do, they're going to vote against Al-Qaeda, they're going to vote against Iran, they're going to vote for, frankly, what's been in Syria for a long time, a moderate, secular, Sunni country.
But does it start with a ceasefire? I
think it has to. A ceasefire, an exchange of prisoners. People are being massacred. Like I said, ordinary Syrians have left while these foreign fighters come in from everywhere, from Afghanistan, from Iraq, from Iran, Hezbollah, Syria, Lebanon. Basically, there's a tinderbox with this massive Shia-Sunni war. The vast majority of the people don't want either side. And I've been disappointed the United States, frankly, hasn't done more to support the free opposition.
Well, two questions. What do you think it will take to get to a ceasefire? And, you know, some of the international community may say, well, how do you get behind an opposition that is as splintered as it is? Who do you get behind?
Well, unfortunately, 2 years ago, this would have been a lot easier. I would have argued you simply do a no-fly zone, and the people of Syria would defend themselves, and they just wouldn't be strafed and bombed by the government of Assad. It's a lot harder now. That's true. Al-Qaeda's there. I predicted this would happen. It's happened. At the end of the day, until the Free Syrian Army gathers enough support and enough territory, both against the Iranian-backed government and against the Al-Qaeda groups, this is just going to keep on going because there's not enough power to tell Assad he has to go.
Well, let me get your thoughts on this upcoming meeting again. Let's circle back to the Geneva talks and this meeting in Switzerland. Can anything be accomplished without the opposition? Who do you think needs to be there to make a first step?
If the Free Syrian Army is not represented there, then there's no meeting. It doesn't matter. And I think the Free Syrian Army will not come unless there's the possibility that Assad will leave the government. It'd be kind of like trying to negotiate a post-World War II Germany and have Adolf Hitler still there. It can't possibly be done. Once they acknowledge that Assad needs to go and there needs to be a democratic election in Syria, I think actually we can arrive at a solution. But Assad's never going to do that as long as he can just go on massacring people without any consequences.
How long do you see this playing out?
Unless and until the West or some other powers support either a ceasefire or a no-fly zone, I predict another 100,000 dead within a year.
All right, Mark Levine, as always, we appreciate your time. Thanks again for joining us
here. Thanks for having me, Elaine.
On this show.